If you can hear that. So a few weeks ago, one of my favorite booktubers, Carrie from Carrie Can Read, filmed a video and started a new tag called Where My Lore Started. Since I watched it, I've been wanting to film it. Of course, I'm new to Booktube, so I needed to set up my channel, film an intro, film my first vlog, etc., etc. Now that we're situated, I'm late to the trend, but whatever, I don't care. Here we are. Hi, I'm Mabel. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, so am I, at least at the time that I'm recording this video. So I'm thrilled that you're here to talk about books with me, bookish things, and share in generally cozy vibes. I'm so excited to film this video because I was a huge bookworm when I was a kid, back when it was not, as cool. So this is very exciting. Let's get into it. Question number 1. What is the first book you remember reading by yourself? I actually have that book with me. Here it is. It's well loved. It's called Descubre las palabras con tus amigos, which translates to discover words with your friends. These are our friends, okay? So this is kind of what I was trying to describe in my newbie booktube tag video. This book has, and it's a little more advanced. I also think I was unhinged for saying like 3 was my earliest memory, because there's no way I was reading this book at 3. I had to have been like 4, pushing 5. It's kind of like a memory / word association situation. So you're reading and then there's a little emoji, there's a little pictograph, and you have to go and match that picture over here. And once you match the picture, you will find the words that you're supposed to fill in for the sentence. So playing the game of memory with a deck of cards also used to be one of my favorite things to do when I was little. So it just kind of really combined all of like my favorite nerdy activities, being reading, admiring cozy illustrations, and playing memory recall type games. Question number 2, what character did you most identify with in elementary school? Let's see. I was a big Roald Dahl fan. Matilda was one of my favorites. I identified with her so much. Again, going back to the fact that I was a huge nerd before reading was cool. I identified a lot with her kind of being more mature for her age, loving books, loving the library. Obviously, I was not a child genius, but I did feel at times isolated from my peers for different reasons, and so she just really resonated with me as a character. Kind of along the same lines, you'll see a trend here. Another character that I really identified with was Hermione. I was in elementary school when the Harry Potter series was first released. Hermione was my favorite character in the series as I was reading those as a child. I think one of my favorite lines is when she's called an insufferable know-it-all, because I definitely went through a phase like that, probably for longer than I care to admit. 3, what was your elementary school comfort book? Scarlett, leave it. Stop. So Scarlett's being very needy right now. So if you see me doing something weird, it's because I'm petting her. Leave it. Good girl. So I also have a couple of these books with me. Ella Enchanted was a big one. This was something that I probably picked up at the Scholastic Book Fair. Loved this story. In addition to loving fantasy as a kid, I was also a huge fan of historical fiction early on. Nothing scratched that itch better than the Dear America books. I have one here with me. I don't even think this was one of my favorites, but I absolutely adored these books. I would check them out from the library every time that they were available. And they were just such a great way for me to get really curious about a specific time in history through a perspective that I could relate to at that age. I loved these books. A few other ones that I can remember be Stargirl. I read that book over and over and over again. I think for me, Stargirl was what Perks of Being a Wallflower was for a lot of people. That was a book that I remember reading, but I think I read it later, like probably past the time where it was like more age appropriate for me. So it didn't have the same impact, but Stargirl, I remember, I think I was in 3rd grade and I was obsessed with that book. A couple others, The Borrowers was a huge comfort book. I loved that story. I loved just things in miniature in general. The Secret Garden was a huge favorite. I also really loved the film adaptation. I'll put it up here. I can't remember what year it was, but I used to watch that as well. I was a big fan of old movies. If you couldn't tell, like I said, I was a huge nerd and a bit of an old soul. I am an eldest daughter, so if you know, you know, eldest daughters unite. The Ghost of Fossil Glen. Does anyone remember that book? Because I also remember reading and rereading that book. This is where that love of like mystery thriller kind of started. Books like that, the Nancy Drew series, of course, were huge favorites. I also loved the American Girl books as well. Those were huge favorites. Even though I personally never had an American Girl, it was not in the budget for my family growing up. And it is something that little Mabel desperately wanted. She wanted a Samantha so bad. Please excuse this very brief interruption in your program. My partner and I were out to brunch earlier today, and after brunch, we decided to stop by this local thrift shop in Austin because I was looking for a specific item that will be revealed in a future video. I'm so excited about that. Anyway, they did not have the item. They're gonna text me when they get it, but they did have books, which I was so excited when I saw these because not only did they have so many excellent finds, but they were in excellent condition. And you guys, for like $1, $2, $3, okay, amazing. Obviously, I walked away with some books, okay? Let's be honest. It's impossible to walk into a store like that and leave empty-handed. I wanted to film this clip, though, because the books that I got are super relevant to this tag. I believe I mentioned Stargirl as one of my favorite comfort reads, and I mean, look at it. Look at it! It's in such good condition, like, perfect. Texture of the cover is also something that like I really enjoyed about it. Like it has this little 17 on the edges, which I don't care because look at it. And look at that. $1? Are you kidding? Like they're giving these things out for free. Also, what I forgot to mention in my video is these bad boys. The Magic Treehouse series. Loved these. I know you guys will appreciate this. They had more, okay? They had more. I had to resist. I was like, Mabel, you can't walk out with all of them. But I did pick up some of my favorites that I remembered. Dolphins at Daybreak. A classic. Some more alliteration with the letter D. Dinosaurs Before Dark. This one I think was probably like the most popular one. And then Afternoon on the Amazon. Amazing. $1 each, okay? And then book lovers will know how we feel about film adaptation covers instead of like the original artwork, okay? Why do we do that? I don't know. It's not for me. When I was little, the book that I had, the Stuart Little copy that I had, was the one with the film adaptation version of, oh my god, who did the voice for Stuart Little? Oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Was it Michael J. Fox? Yes. That was the copy that I had. And so when I found this one, look at these illustrations and illustrations on the inside. Stunning. Excellent condition. $1. Also, I love this little, originally from Book People, which is one of our favorite indie bookstores here in Austin. And that's enough yapping for me. So please resume your regularly scheduled program. Question number 4, what was your safe place as a child? Definitely a book, anywhere with a book. I did not understand this as a child, and neither did my parents, because it's just not something that I think there were like resources available to identify, but I was definitely very easily overstimulated and a big introvert. So I was fine being in social situations, but I would very quickly become overwhelmed. This is true of me today as an adult. This is not something that has changed. My awareness of it, of course, has changed. But I grew up with a big family, and my dad's side of the family is huge, and we would go to parties on like holidays or just random dinners, and they would always be pretty large gatherings, and I couldn't like hang for very long, so I always had a book, and that was my source of comfort. And it's still true today. That habit of always carrying a book with me has stuck to this day. I'm 34 years old and I still always have a book in my purse in one form or another. Question number 5, how has your taste in books changed since childhood? I really appreciate that Carrie included this question because I hadn't really reflected on that before, and I actually don't think my tastes have changed a whole lot. Like you've seen from some of the books that I've shared, fantasy was a big genre for me. Historical fiction was a big genre for me. I also really enjoyed the nonfiction books, like those eyewitness series books where you got to learn about a specific topic. I used to love those books. And I still do very much enjoy nonfiction books that zero in on one specific historical time period or one specific science topic or something like that. Nancy Drew, I loved reading the Nancy Drew books. I have a few of them in my collection. That's really where my love of like mystery / thriller started. That's definitely still something I read today. I probably don't read as much of it as I did as a child, but horror as well is a big one. Goosebumps were, loved these. I loved reading Goosebumps. I was such a weird kid and I really appreciated the weirdness of the Goosebumps books. I definitely still love to read horror. Speaking of weird, I've only recently started to kind of delve into like the weird girl lit genre or subgenre, and so far I like what I've read. You'll see more of that in my recaps. Okay, question number 6. Did you feel inspired to read by your school? And if so, how did your upbringing encourage reading? So yes, absolutely. I was very much encouraged by my schools, plural. I moved around a lot as a kid, so I think I went to like 5 or 6 different elementary schools for no particular reason. I wasn't like an army brat or anything. I think my parents were immigrants and it just took them a while to kind of figure out where they really wanted to set up roots, which eventually ended up being Texas. So I went to a few different schools in a few different states, and I did feel that in every single one of those environments, I felt that I was lucky enough to be nurtured. I came across meaningful educators in my life that really took an interest in making sure that those interests were developed in me. The Scholastic Book Fair was a huge thing. Keeping up with a reading log where like you had to read for a certain amount of time every night. Your parent would sign off on like the fact that you read for 30 minutes or an hour or however long, and then you would bring it to school, and if you had everything filled out by the end of the week, you got like a sticker or something to mark your progress. I don't remember exactly. Also, I ended up going to college to major in English literature. So yeah, I would say that academically, I definitely was supported in my interest and passion for reading. Question number 7, what book have you wanted to return to lately? Recently, I have actually been thinking a lot about the Roald Dahl books that I used to love to read as a kid. They were just so funny. I remember laughing out loud reading those books. They were such a good time. I would love to read those as an adult because I haven't touched them since I was a kid. I'd love to revisit those now as an adult and compare my experience or just look at it from a different lens. I think that would be a good time. Question number 8, your formative YA series. Yeah, Twilight. There's no denying it. There's no getting around it. I did get caught up in the craze of Twilight. I did read all the books, like in one sitting each. I just remember like my eyes being glued to the page. I knew, of course, at the time that the writing was terrible, that the books were very silly, but they got me. They got all of us. Question number 9, a book you had to read in school but you loved. Okay, Carrie, what do you mean but? Like, I don't understand. Like, if you had to read a book in school, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was going to be like a miserable experience. But again, I've established my nerdiness here, so that's my perspective. Okay, I would say most of the time I did enjoy the books that I had to read in school. Probably it was more the rule rather than the exception that I would enjoy these books. There are very few books that I recall not enjoying that I had to read for school, but big ones that made a huge impact on me: To Kill a Mockingbird, The Diary of Anne Frank, the Shakespeare plays that we read, of course, Romeo and Juliet, and I think Macbeth was the other one that I read in high school. Number the Stars, that was a huge one. I don't have memories of assigned books earlier than middle school and high school. So, question number 10, your weirdest favorite book. So the first thought that I had, and this is older, this is like middle school, was The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is an excellent book and a classic for a reason. However, it is, I would say, very weird that at like age 12, I read that book and I could not stop thinking about it, and I was obsessed with it. From the perspective of the writing, the craft, I was obsessed with that aspect of it, the way that the story is told. Yeah, I was like a preteen that like could not stop thinking about that book. So that's a little weird just because I don't know that it was age appropriate. I don't know that like it shouldn't be read by a 12-year-old, but it's like, it's just, I think it's a little random. The other book that I remember really loving, and it wasn't weird at the time, but like looking back, it is kind of weird. Do you guys remember The Face on the Milk Carton? Going back to our love of like mystery thrillers from like day one, The Face on the Milk Carton was one of those. And I loved that book. But thinking about it now, that's so weird that we loved this book. Just like my understanding now. Like, it's so weird. Question number 11, if your 13-year-old self could live in a fictional world, which would it be? Is it different from the world that you would choose now? So 13-year-old me in a heartbeat would have said Hogwarts. I can say confidently that if you ask most millennials, they will probably answer that because we were all waiting for that owl to deliver the letter, right? It's just, we can't escape that it's a part of the cultural makeup of our upbringing. As disappointing as certain associations may be, it's just kind of a fact. So 100% Hogwarts would have been my answer at age 13. Today, I don't know that I would want to live in a fictional world. I think adult me has like worked too hard to try and stay in the present and pull back from some avoidance tendencies to have a good answer for that now. So yeah, I don't know. And lastly, number 12, is there a newly released book that you wish you had when you were younger? So this is not a new release as in like recent, but it was released well after I was in elementary school, and it's something that I read recently, and that was The Wild Robot. I would have loved that book as a kid if I had come across it in like 2nd or 3rd grade. It's so wholesome, it's so sweet. I think it's a really interesting and whimsical way to explore the genre of science fiction from the perspective of a child. I adore that book, and I think I would have adored it at age 8. That wraps up today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad that you're here. If you stayed all the way to the end, leave a robot emoji in the comments. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe, as I'm trying to grow and build this little community to create more content for you that hopefully we can all enjoy and share in together. Until the next one, I will see you next time. Bye.